Hey guys, welcome to the channel. So in the last video I showed you guys what I previously done, mainly focused on the menu interface and all that. In this video I'm going to be showing my progress in the last 1 week, what I've been able to achieve so far. Okay, so the first thing I had to tackle was the movement. Now in game development in general, what we do is we have a body that actually moves like a mesh, right? That is just based on physics, it moves around the level, and then we put in a view holder, a physical mesh that you can actually see carrying out animations. That is most of the times the case. So in Unreal Engine, it's the movement part of it is pre-provided. Now, providing you want something more complex, you may have to create your own, but for this I don't really need it since my character is fairly similar to the ones they have already provided. For the animation side of things, I use the shooter animation pack on the asset store to have a base level anime blueprint. Now the anime blueprint is basically what controls the animation that the character is performing. Yeah, you connect your character to the anime blueprint, and basically it takes the pose it's supposed to be showing every frame from the anime blueprint. To make things easier, I use the pre-provided anime blueprint that comes with the shooter animation pack. As well, they've done the basic movement like the walking and jogging animations down. So the next thing to set up was the camera. Now the camera setup for third person view is not necessarily at the back of the character. It's more of shoulder side most of the times and you, like for instance in Metal Gear, you notice that the camera is always above his shoulder. Most of the times you can switch shoulder when aiming down sight. Now what I'm going to have set up, it's always going to be above the character's shoulder, and when he aim down sight, he's either going to be able to zoom in or zoom in on the weapon with the weapon scope. Now the first thing I need to do is use what we call a spring arm in Unreal Engine. Basically what this does is that it kind of uses a raycast to determine where the camera will be at the back of the player based on the position you set it. So basically it will, if it hits a wall, it reduces the distance between the player and the camera so that you don't have anything standing in between two of them. The camera is not seen as a separate object, rather the camera and the player are seen as one. So after setting that up, I moved on to the aim offset. Now the aim offset is basically what helps the player character to look at the same place the crochet is pointing. Now the crosshair, if you've noticed, our character will always be looking at wherever the crochet is aimed. So we want to have synchronicity between two of them so that we don't have the camera looking down, the character is still looking forward. He has to be able to shoot to the position the camera is pointing and look like it's actually shooting there. Yeah, so that was the next thing to do. In order to do this, I had to break one animation, right? The aim space that has been provided. I had to break it down into two different animations. So since our character rotates with the camera left and right, the only thing we need is really up and down. So we created a 2D blend space and make him aim up and aim down, and voila, he aims up and aim down. Now to apply it, we have to actually plug it into our anime blueprint, and well, it's working, but we may have some problems. Now, the problems with this is basically getting where the character is looking. After a short tutorial, I managed to get that up and running. Now, if you've noticed, I also said I wanted this to be for a mobile platform game. So, yeah, we are going to have to compile it first. So I took a few minutes to get this compiled and tested again so that I can see how it looks like. But then I noticed that I had to set up something that was important. This is the touch look component. Now, it's not built in, so I had to look into some things here and there and try and build it up. Now, the touch look component enables me to basically look around with the character. Yeah, basically it allows me to use the finger space where you touch on your screen, uses the delta and all that stuff, and gets the new position it should be looking at, and adds the inputs to the character. Now, yeah, I don't know what I'm doing here, so let's move on. Okay, so the next thing I had to do was I had to fix up that movable button. So I had to fix up the movable button I had had some bugs with in the past, and well, let's just say it turns out it was easier than I thought. Now, well, it did give me quite a few problems, so yeah. Okay, so first of all, I created a new project, went inside to test it out and see how I can make it work, and yeah, it was working all right until I brought it into the project, and well, yeah, it didn't come through too well. So it kind of deceived me at first that it was working, because yeah, it was working on my PC, until I exported it to test it on my phone and I realized, well, something was broken. So it goes back to show a lesson that I learned. Always test on the platform you are releasing for. Now, it may not seem like much, but it's very important. Now, the thing is, if you only test for on the platform you're building it on PC, well, what will work on PC will always work on PC. But when you take it to the mobile platform, there are lots of things that won't work as you plan them. Like, for instance, displacement will never work on mobile phones because it's too heavy for them to handle. So instead, you have to use something that well fits the performance cap of mobile platforms. Apart from performance cap, there is also inputs. There is difference between touch input and mouse and keyboard input. I realized that a while ago when I could plug my mouse into my phone and use it, right? And there was actually quite a different feeling to it. So apart from that, the buttons didn't move. So as it was that the buttons wasn't moving well, it wasn't performing as it was on PC, I realized a few things. The first problem was mobile touch inputs. Now, the mobile touch input, right, works with buttons, but if you click a button and you happen to drag, right, you won't be able to look around. It will get the camera stuck, right? This will be hindering gameplay when the player wants to shoot the weapon and move around. He has to be able to change where he's looking at while he's shooting. So in order to allow that to work, I actually found a workaround. Yeah, instead of using a button, I used just a border. Yeah, and the border actually doesn't consume the inputs that is coming from the player's touch. So it actually still goes through to the touch loop controller, and as well invoke the events I want it to. So another thing was the fact that uh, drag and drop on the border didn't work well. So I tried using a button and a border mixed, still didn't give me quite what I was looking for. So I had to switch it completely to borders, and the touch coordinate was proven to be different from the mouse coordinate. So that thing also did not work. So yeah, I had to do quite a bit of playing around before I got finally to fix it. So to fix it, I had to use the input event coming from border. I had to use it as the coordinates to move the buttons so that we can correctly save and load the buttons in runtime. So also I used my old button material to apply for each of the button. Yeah, in runtime, in the editor it will show as a single button, but once it gets into runtime, the buttons reinitialize and change to their appropriate button. Okay, so lastly, what I worked on was the weapons. Now, the weapon is a very unique class, as weapons comes in very many shapes, sizes, and colors. But nevertheless, we are doing a shooter game, so most of our weapons are going to be guns. The only other type of weapon we may have is melees, right? But basically everything is going to look like a gun, so why not? Yeah. Now, the first thing I had to do was to create a base weapon class. Now, what the base weapon class is primarily for is for storing information about the weapons. Apart from information, defining what the base structure of the weapon looks like, yeah, so that we can derive from that and create many reusable weapons. Now, the weapons may even be able to be used outside of this project, as it will be very modular. What I did next was I defined the properties of the weapons, like recoil, the fire rate, the particle effect for the fire animation, the reload animation, and all that good stuff to make sure we have information on each weapon. Now, each weapon will have unique information. Now, although we are going to be changing it for each weapon, they still rely on the base class. Okay? In fact, I modeled it in Blender and created it in Unreal using Unreal's particle system. Now, I love Unreal particle system because it's very, very interactive and intuitive. If you know what you're doing, you will get around with it very well, no doubt. Although it does take a while to get used to, I won't lie. So because I had some issues while learning it, I was like, why not even use just the blueprints far before. So yeah, I realized particle effects was better, and they give you a lot more functionality when you understand how to use them properly. So the three things I did in the particle effects was the muzzle flash, the bullet trail, and later I'm going to be doing the impact. I'm not done with that because I'll explain that just in a moment. But the muzzle flash I basically modeled in Blender, brought it into Unreal, apply a material, and voila, we have a muzzle flash. Now, I did one first before, but I didn't really like the look of things, so I changed it. Then the bullet trail. Now, the bullet trail was a real puzzling one. I wanted to use particle effects completely for it, but well, when it came to me that the bullet kind of acts on its own, I know there's a way to do it on particle effects, but well, I don't know. I'm not sure how to do it. So, and I'm kind of lazy, so I just said, okay, use an actor. Now, since my weapon is a hit scan weapon, I'm not going to be using bullet projectiles, as it will be heavy for network later on in multiplayer. So the projectiles will just be hit scans right? Then what the bullet trail is essentially going to do is going to follow the path of the bullet, of the trail rather, from the muzzle of the gun to the hit location and disappear, and then spawn the impact effect. Now the impact effect is going to be based on what material the bullet touches on the floor. If you like what you see, you can hit the like button and the notification icon if you want to see more of me. You can also subscribe to the channel. I'll well appreciate it. So if you have any opinions or anything you want to share with me, you can do that in the comment section. If you want to support me, I have my Patreon link down below, and I would really like to see more of you guys, as this, I'm considering it a community game. It's a community effort between all of us, and I would like to as well put something out very good. Thank you guys so much. Love you guys, and I'll be hoping to see you next Friday.